All right, so it is the top of the hour. We're going to go ahead and kick things off. Thank you so much for being here and joining us for today's webinar on overcoming the imposter syndrome. I myself have been looking forward to this presentation, and I know a lot of you have as well. So thank you, Haley, for being here, and I'll introduce her officially in just a moment. If you would, please mute your microphones or cell phones and use the chat box for any questions that you may have. I will be monitoring that throughout to make sure Haley answers all of your questions. And then I just want to take a moment to introduce myself. My name is Bailey Neff. I am a Purdue graduate 2017 from the College of Agriculture, and I have been at Purdue basically ever since I graduated. I'm the current director of business partnerships, and I have the opportunity to maybe introduce the Purdue for Life Foundation to all of you for the first time. It was made official April 1, and so the Purdue for Life Foundation helps friends and alumni of Purdue University connect, get involved, and give back. Our new organization combines the Purdue Alumni Association, which many of you I'm sure are familiar with, and the University Development Office. The benefits for our Purdue family include coordinated activities and resources like you're seeing today, streamlined communications, and new opportunities such as lifelong learning programs. And if you want to learn more, please feel free to go to purdueforlife.org. There's a lot more information there that you can learn about the foundation. So I highly encourage you to do that. And then if you have any additional questions for me about Purdue for Life or business development or what I do, here is my information, and I can put this in the chat later as well. But now I would like to stop sharing my screen and officially introduce Haley Crawford. She's been with us before for other presentations if you have participated before, but she's a certified career coach, speaker, author, and national career expert with 20 years of experience. So we're going to learn all about overcoming the imposter syndrome.
Thank you, Bailey. I really appreciate it. And thank you, everyone, for being here today. Bailey, I think our backgrounds kind of match here. We look very official and academic. So I'm thrilled to be here with you all today. And we are going to obviously be talking about, as Bailey said, overcoming the imposter syndrome. But we'll intersperse some nuggets and advice about how to deal with this during COVID as well, because we have had a ton of people and our clients say, you know, it's actually gotten worse for me in some ways, because when we're thrown into this remote work situation, some of us do fantastic with it and some of us don't and really struggle. And so please know that if you fall on either side of that spectrum, you're not alone, it's normal. And we're going to talk about advice to kind of handle that as we go today. So as Bailey said, I'm Haley Crawford. I'm a certified career coach and the founder of my own coaching company, Create Your Career Path. We have been coaching and training for just over 21 years now. I started my business. I got kind of lucky. I kind of joke that I had an early life crisis. This is me on the left and my mom and my sister. And I just wanted to bring this photo up because I always want to let people know kind of in advance that I actually suffer from imposter syndrome from time to time as well, and definitely did in my 20s before I started my business. I had no idea, you know, what I wanted to do, much less what my strengths were, what my value was. So fast forward 21 years, as an entrepreneur and business owner, even though we have thousands and thousands of success stories with our clients and have a great reputation within our industry, I still suffer, like a lot of people do, from this sense of imposter syndrome, thinking that my success was due to luck or due to the people that work for me versus being able to fully own the success that we've had. So I want you to know you're not alone. It happens to any of us at any given time, and it can, you know, be tougher during certain times of our lives than others. Just as a quick note here on our website, I did want to let you all know too, in addition to the content that we're presenting today, especially during COVID, because we know so many people are struggling in different ways, we're trying to put out and publish as much helpful, useful content as we can during this time. So please don't hesitate to visit our website and specifically our career blog. as well as connect with me on LinkedIn, because we also publish information there. And we are trying to help people as much as we possibly can, because we know that there's just a lot going on. So let's dive in and talk about our agenda first here. These are the things that we are going to be covering today. So first of all, we want to kind of define and explain to you what we mean by the imposter syndrome. Next, talk with you about the impact that it can have on you. And there are two ways to think about the impact. There's the internal impact, kind of the fears that we have, the lack of confidence, etc. But then those internal impacts have an external impact in our professional lives. And we'll talk about what those are so that you all can begin to define and know and better understand when you're experiencing this versus when you're not, and begin to better manage it effectively. Because one of the things that we always have our clients kind of consider and think about is, are there certain times or kind of themes that you notice when you feel this sense of imposter syndrome? For example, when you talk to a specific person or client, do you tend to feel less confident? Or in a certain situation or working on a certain project or task? And the more you can identify what these patterns are, then the easier it's going to be for you to kind of proactively manage them over time. So we want you to notice and kind of track the impact over the next couple of weeks as well. Then we're going to talk about, obviously, tools to manage and manage around it. And we'd like you to walk away with very specific action steps that you will take in the next week. So here's the deal with imposter syndrome, everyone, in terms of your action steps, is this is something that it may not ever go away completely for you. It's kind of human nature. We all have self-doubt at one time or another in our lives. So the goal here is to take this work kind of in baby steps. Note that you don't have to tackle every single thing at once, but choose one action item to work on in the next week. And the good news is, with these types of issues that we have, when you do one thing, it's kind of an all boats rise with the tide thing, where everything else will kind of improve and get better. So it's easier actually to tackle this than you might think that it is. We wanted to let you all know that in addition to the handout as well as the recording, if anyone would like a copy of the PowerPoint slides, we'd be happy to share those with you. I know how it is to, I'm a frantic note taker. And if you don't want to feel like you have to do that the whole time, please don't hesitate. You can just email us at admin@halliecrawford.com, which is on the screen. And we'd be happy to share with you a copy of the presentation and any of the tools and advice that we share with you today. All right, so what is the imposter syndrome? So think about it in terms of, it is kind of a psychological phenomenon, if you will, but we don't want it to seem too heavy and heavy duty when we define it this way. Okay, so it's something where basically you are less able in certain situations or in certain times of your life, maybe, to really internalize your accomplishments and take ownership of them and kind of give yourself those kudos, if you will. And when people have or experience this sense of imposter syndrome, usually they are convinced in some way, shape, or form. And again, this doesn't have to be all the time, but it could be every once in a while, that they're frauds in some way, and they don't either deserve the success that they've achieved, or they pass it off and say, oh, well, it was just luck, or my boss at the time really liked me and kind of gave me a break. So instead of being able to say, look, I'm really good at this, and my business is fantastic as a result, or, I've become VP of this organization, or whatever it is, you're less able to kind of internalize and take ownership for that success, is the bottom line. And again, as we said, I just want to reiterate that this doesn't have to mean that you feel this way all the time. It can come and go situationally, or depending on a certain person that you're talking to. And it can come and go depending on what's going on in our lives. What we have found with COVID is that some people have a greater sense of imposter syndrome, unfortunately, because for those people, for example, who are more extroverted and they're lacking that feedback that they get or got on a more regular basis from being in the office. They can have a greater sense of this imposter syndrome. Other people who don't do as well creating structure for themselves, working from home, and aren't as able to like structure their day or balance their time, they're having a greater sense of this imposter syndrome as well. So it can depend on so many different things, kind of situationally too. And one of the things to realize and understand is that even incredibly successful people, they can have this sense of things as well. So here's an example. This is from Inc. magazine several years ago. That even very successful entrepreneurs, who I kind of feel like we all assume must have so much confidence, right? Because they took this risk to start their own business and, grew it to whatever size. Even very successful entrepreneurs can have this sense of imposter syndrome. This is a quote from a successful, at the time, grocery store out in California. And this person even said and admitted, I didn't feel like I deserved it. Was it because of me or, the staff or that kind of thing? And we want people to, it's not about, overcoming or managing the imposter syndrome is not suddenly about becoming overly confident and bragging about yourself all the time. That's not what we're looking for. It's good and important as a leader and as a team member to give credit to other people. But the problem comes in with the imposter syndrome is that it impacts how you behave in the workplace, which we'll talk about a little bit more in a few minutes. And it can impact how much risk you take in your career, whether you not just take chances, but how much you promote yourself within your organization to then move up to the next level. Approximately, kind of statistic wise, if you take a look at this next slide, around 2 out of 5 successful people consider themselves fraud at one time or another. And about 70% of people feel like imposters at one time or another. And by the way, this isn't just a male-female thing. It goes across the board. We've had clients at all levels tell us they have this, sense of imposter syndrome from all different levels, walks of life, types of organizations, and it's not gender specific either. When we talk about COVID, as we already did just a little bit, if you're trying to, learn new processes from home, not just kind of structuring your day more effectively, but when you're trying to learn new processes and systems and leverage technology more, that can make us, feel kind of intimidated. And we've also found too that people don't always know how to work as effectively either with their team of peers when they're working remotely, and also the leaders that we work with as well. They don't know how to be a leader as effectively virtually. They have a harder time with that too. So a lot of people feel kind of unequipped for these new challenges. And obviously, I think people are getting better at it now that this has dragged on for so long. But again, you want to notice if this is one of the situations, if you're trying to do something virtually that previously you were able to do in person, it can make a difference. We were talking to, and I just wanted to pause here for a second because we were talking to a prospective client this morning, and he actually was explaining to us that he's happens to be a lawyer. He's out in California, and he was explaining to us that for him, he's been struggling with imposter syndrome for years. It's getting a little bit better at this point in his life, but the first job that he had out of law school, it was kind of an abusive, in a way, work situation. They blamed him for things, any mistake that was made, even if it wasn't his mistake. He never got credit for his work. And unfortunately, the owner of the organization, of the law firm, was just the kind of person that would berate people and get angry. So unfortunately, sometimes some of us will have this sense of imposter syndrome because of a toxic work situation. So there's lots of different, reasons why this can happen. Working remotely is so challenging, and we totally get that. It's so easy to overwork. We get interrupted all the time. It's just easier to kind of feel burned out. And this all kind of adds to, or can add to, our sense of frustration and not knowing what we're doing. We might have felt incredibly effective in our, working in person. And now some of us may feel completely ineffective or kind of 50-50. So let's talk about the internal impact that happens first as a result of this imposter syndrome. And there's kind of three categories that we tend to see in our clients when we're working with them on this situation. There could be other things that you are experiencing kind of internally from it. So please know these don't have to be all of the categories for you. But the first thing we wanted you to do is do a little bit of self-reflection to start to identify, okay, what's the internal impact? How do I feel as a result of this imposter syndrome? And we'll go ahead and have you write it down. But if we could go ahead and do this first poll, perfect timing, thank you. We also want to hear from you all, which of these applies to you the most? Is it feeling like a fake and people think that you're better at something than you actually feel like you are? You don't, own your success, or that you discount it just completely and kind of push that aside. So please go ahead, and if you were to do our poll, that'd be fantastic, as well as write down what your feelings are, because the sooner you can identify, it's like awareness is the first step, right? The sooner you can identify what's going on inside, the sooner we can start to address it. And we'll give you a moment to do that. It looks like we've got everybody voting, which is fantastic. And while we're doing this, give me 1 second, guys. I need to do one thing. All right, so I can see the results. Sorry, had to do a virtual school thing. I know you guys understand. All right, so we have feeling like a fake is 61%. Attributing success to luck is 32%. And discounting success is 53%. So thank you all for sharing this. So feeling like a fake usually happens, just FYI, when we feel like other people think or believe that we're better at something than we actually feel like we are. And the other thing I wanted to say about the discounting success as well is be careful about what we have found with our clients. I think is the best way to describe it, is that the things that we tend to be very good at, that come naturally to us, our greatest like top two strengths, we tend to assume that everyone else is good at those things because they come so naturally to us. We assume that, oh, everyone must be good at this. So one of the things we want you all to pay attention to and kind of notice is if some of those strengths that you have are things that you're assuming everyone else is good at and not fully giving yourself credit for those things, because that's just kind of a natural thing that we do, especially as we get older. So I'm 48, so I can say that as we get older and more senior in our career, we feel like, well, isn't everyone just good at this because we've been doing it so long? So write that down on your handout as well, is do you fully know and own and understand what your top two strengths are? And are you really owning those strengths? Or is there a part of you that's saying, oh, well, isn't everybody just good at this? And I'm just assuming that it's actually not a strength that I should point out during, for example, a job interview or working towards a promotion. Okay, so thank you for participating in that poll, everybody. That's perfect. So the next thing that we actually want to ask you is our second poll here, because we want you to start to also think about what your experience is, and this is another good thing for you to write down on your handout, is how often you feel like an imposter. Is it around 25% of the time? Is it around 50% or 75%? So think about how frequently you have this sense of the imposter syndrome. And by the way, as you're completing the poll, we would highly recommend that if you're not really sure how often it is, or if you're not sure what those situations are that you feel like this more than others, journal, like just get out a piece of paper or a journal on and put it on your desk. And for the next like 3 to 5 work days, just write down when you feel this way more than others, so that you can identify what those themes are in certain situations, again, so that you can be more prepared in advance of those situations and address them head on. So far we've got 50% saying about half of the time, which is usually kind of what's normal that we find with our clients. It's usually kind of half and half. And we'll give you another minute here to complete this. And remember, as part of this, we want you to not just think about, okay, what's the percentage or frequency, but when does it normally happen? Because, for example, if it happens with a certain person, you want to prepare in advance for that phone call or that video conference with them. Or if it's around a certain project or task, do you need to kind of enhance or beef up your strengths or education within that area, and that might help? Or is it simply like, positive self-talk? Okay, so I think we're good. It looks like we've got the majority say about 50-50. So if it's that 50%, like most of you, it is, and that's good news. It's better that obviously we don't have it as 75% for the majority of people. Start to notice when the different themes are, or when it happens more often than not, okay? When we first work with clients, we just kind of want you to noodle on this and kind of ponder it. When we're working with clients who come to us to deal with whatever obstacles they are working on or need to get past to achieve their career goals and work on their professional success, I wanted to tell you all that 9 times out of 10, the majority of the time, when we ask clients, like really deep down, what gets in your way the most from achieving your career goals, usually they'll say that they are their biggest obstacle. It's their fear. It's their, inability or, fear of taking a risk. It's their negative self-talk. So this is why thinking about the internal impact is such a big deal kind of right up front, because usually we are the ones that are getting in our own way. It's not some external circumstance. Now, it can be external circumstances as well, obviously. If you are not in the right job, if you're in a toxic work environment, if you're not leveraging your strengths effectively, etc., we don't want you to stay in a career path or in a job that's not a fit. Absolutely. But always take a look at yourself first, because our kind of running joke with our clients when we're helping them specifically with career direction is we always say, you don't want to take your baggage with you. So whatever you've got going on internally, even if we get you into the best job that's the greatest fit for you, if you've got baggage that you're carrying with you, you're just going to bring that along and it's going to mess it up. Okay, so keep that in mind. So let's talk next about the external impact and the results that some of us will see as a result of the imposter syndrome. There are some examples on the right-hand side of this slide, but we would love to hear from others of you who might be experiencing other examples beyond the ones that we're talking about today. So in the chat box, please feel free to share any other examples that you have noticed for yourselves of the imposter syndrome kind of externally. And we would recommend, again, on your handout or even kind of thinking about it for homework, what are the 2 biggest kind of negative or largest negative impacts that you have experienced or seen in your professional career as a result of this? For some people, it could be that I haven't applied for jobs that I don't feel 100% qualified for. And I probably could have gotten that job, but I just didn't push myself because of the imposter syndrome. Some of you may say, I didn't go for that promotion as quickly as I could have, or as soon as I could have. For others, it might be that you constantly understate your experience or your skills and your strengths, and you're always kind of pushing aside like kudos or testimonials from clients or whatever it is, and you always constantly understate your experience. For other people, we've also noticed that they might over prepare for certain tasks and waste time getting ready for something because they're so afraid of it, or for the specific project or task or meeting, that because they've got this sense of imposter syndrome, they prepare much more than they actually need to. And it leads to kind of over perfectionism, if you will. And the result of all of these, which is the main underlying problem, obviously, is these all result in higher stress, because either we're not achieving our career goals, we're not challenging ourselves enough, so we don't feel as, rewarded and fulfilled as we could. And there's a certain stress level that comes with if we're kind of beating up on ourselves internally all the time. So we want you, obviously, to stop feeling like a fraud. So let's talk next about some of the tools that we have given our clients to manage. And actually, I just wanted to look at the chat and see if there were any other examples. Okay, great. So let me take a look at this just for a moment, because these are some good ones. One person said one of the results for her was procrastination to improve her skill set. So not taking that class that you need to, or whatever it is. Another person said being afraid to change departments, which is that's a normal feeling too, losing my perceived safety net. Okay. And we did have one question that I'll answer, and then we'll keep going here as we go. Is, do women experience imposter syndrome more often than men? I think it's a great question. I would argue that they do to a certain extent. Like I said earlier, we have seen like a 50-50 balance between men and women, but I do think that women tend to understate their experience and expertise a little bit more than men do, just for so many different reasons, the way we're socialized, et cetera. Okay. All right, so let's keep going. And please know that we will have time for questions at the end too. So we'll go through the ones that have come through and also new ones that come in. So let's talk about tools to manage here for the next few minutes, and then we'll get to that. So I wanted to use kind of an example as one way to describe and illustrate some of the tools that you can use to manage your imposter syndrome. And notice that I say manage versus completely overcome it, because I don't think it's realistic to say it's going to be gone forever. We all struggle with what we call in coaching these gremlins, these fears, these negative inner voices. We all do to a certain extent. They just kind of change and morph over time, and maybe say different things depending on what's going on in our lives and in our profession. So one of our clients a few years ago, she actually was here in Atlanta and worked for Home Depot, very high up in their marketing department, director level. And she came to us and said, I've been wanting to change career paths. She wanted to stay in marketing still, but she wanted to get into a different organization. And she had been procrastinating making this change for years, for a lot of different reasons. But one of the reasons for her was she didn't actually ever finish her college degree. So she always had this kind of burden on herself and this negative thinking about, well, my bosses always really liked me, so they promoted me. It was just due to luck or other people. She was not able to accept or kind of internalize her success. So Beth had struggled with this for years and had done pretty much almost nothing about her job search to make a move and a change. So some of the things that we worked with her on are listed on the slide. And if any of you have other ideas, we would love to hear it. Please feel free to share those in the chat. So one of the things we would recommend that you all do, especially those of you who feel like you discount your strengths and your skills, is number one, interview other people. And ask them things like, what do you feel I do more or better than most people that you know? What do you see are my top 3 strengths? And what adjectives come to mind when you think of me? Interviewing other people in your personal and professional life, teammates as well as boss or team members, lots of different types of people who play a different role in your life. And also a good mix of male, female can actually help too, to bring or give you a different perspective. But interviewing others can not only help validate what your strengths are, but may help you realize that you've actually discounted your success or strengths in certain areas more than others. A second thing that we would highly recommend that you do is write a couple of quick affirmations that you post on a Post-it note on your bathroom mirror, on your fridge at home, and in your car, whatever is best. Here's the deal. Affirmations, they actually work. psychological studies show that they are effective for people because it's starting to retrain your brain to think in a different way. And especially for people who have been in a negative or toxic work environment, they've got a lot more negative thinking than some other people do. So these affirmations, you want them to be short and sweet. They can't be too long. They need to be kind of punchy. And also, you want them to be inspirational. So an affirmation, if, for example, you don't know this one particular type of software for your job, but you're working on it and are getting there, one affirmation could be, for example, I don't know this software yet, but I will in the next 3 months because I'm working on it. Okay, so affirmations need to be short and sweet, something that you can believe and buy into, so it's realistic, but also sets your mind in a more positive direction. A third thing actually that we have our clients do is to write down all of their accomplishments, even since childhood, things that they've achieved personally and professionally. And 9 times out of 10, when they do this and they actually see it in black and white and maybe even post it on their wall or on their desk and leave it there for like a few weeks, it starts to boost their confidence again. Okay. Number 4, a fourth item would be to commit to taking risks every day in your work life, but also in your personal life. Here's the deal with this one, everyone. Confidence is like a muscle that you have to develop and work it out. It will atrophy if you don't challenge yourself enough and if you don't push yourself to continuing to boost your confidence. It'll just kind of go away as if you hadn't gone to the gym and, worked out. And one of the ways to boost your confidence and continue to kind of leverage it, use it, work it out, so to speak, is by taking risks every day. You don't have to take huge risks. It could be, for example, if you tend to not talk as much during a certain meeting because the leader of the meeting intimidates you or whatever it is, push yourself to speak up in those next meetings like 3 different times. It can be small risks that you take, but the more you do this, the more your confidence will get developed and you'll see, okay, I took these risks and everything worked out just fine. The last thing we want you to think about too, and again, feel free to share some other ideas in the chat box because we'd love to see them and I'll read a couple of those out in a moment if we get them. Pay attention to your physical body position and language. There's this great TED Talk on body language that came out, it was multiple years ago, but it is so true. When we work with clients and we tell them, okay, you don't feel confident or so great right now, get into a confident kind of body posture or position, whether it's sitting up straight or standing up or whatever it is. And they automatically, just by doing that, start to feel more confident as a result. So body language and body kind of positioning, if you will, and certain things that you do to sit up straight or whatever it is, will actually impact your confidence. Not only will you come across as more confident because of the way that you're sitting and presenting yourself, but it does and will impact you internally as well. So let's go back to client Beth, and then we'll give you some more tools before we do Q&A. So client Beth, we worked with her, I would say it's been a few years since we did. So it was probably about 5 or 6 months, give or take, to boost her confidence, then decide what she wanted her next step to be. And she actually got a fantastic job at Sears in Chicago. It was Sears at the time. And it was such a good opportunity for her and such a huge promotion actually from where she was that she moved her whole family up there with her. They moved their family as a result of this new job that she got. So it really just validates again for us how much we can get in our own way, and we've got to pay attention to that because we're not, like, if you're playing small in your life and in your career, in your professional life, you're going to get small. A few other things that you can do in order to help you get past this imposter syndrome is to identify or leverage, if you already have one, a mentor or a coach. It's a great idea to have accountability and support and help with this, whether it's a peer at your organization, a mentor at your organization or outside of this. They can be inside or outside of your organization. Both types of mentors can be valuable for different reasons. But one of the things we encourage you to do is while you're working on this imposter syndrome is one way or the other, set up regular times to meet or talk with someone who is an accountability partner who can help you boost your confidence and help support your growth and boosting your confidence again. They can help point out when you're discounting your success. They can help you understand what your strengths are and how you can leverage them a little bit more. You want to make sure that when you're working with either a mentor or a coach or a peer, that you not just ask them for advice along the way, but that you let them know and you make a commitment to being open to feedback that they might give you, because obviously that's the whole point. Sometimes we go into these types of relationships thinking, oh, I'm so open to feedback. And then when we actually get it, sometimes it can hurt our feelings a little bit. So you want to be prepared to say, look, this is a learning experience for me and I want to be open to it. Just really quickly, before we go to a couple of other tools we want you to use to leverage this or work around imposter syndrome, we did want to offer, if anyone feels like they need additional advice or wants to ask additional questions based on what we've talked about today or any other career goal, we always like to offer a free strategy session to get some additional advice, but also to learn a little bit more about our coaching services. You can just email us at the same email address that we provided before. It's on the screen here, admin@halliecrawford.com. Happy to chat with you for a few minutes about your specific needs. So a couple of other things we want you to pay attention to or to help you identify where you may be experiencing this imposter syndrome, but also to boost your confidence, is one of the tools that we like to use with our clients, especially those who are either in leadership positions or trying to become a better leader, is this leadership wheel from Development Dimensions International. It's a fantastic management consulting firm, highly regarded. And these are the top 10 leadership skills or strengths that they assert are most important in today's economy. So one of the things that you can do is to print this out and rank yourself in each one of these areas so that you get clear on the strengths that you actually have as a leader to help validate the strengths that you have, especially if you're one of those people that is discounting it. And realize too that the areas that you may not be as good as at a leader and as a leader in these certain specific areas, realize too that you don't have to be perfect in all of them. And there may be people that you need to leverage kind of in your circle, on your team, et cetera, that can help you kind of fill those gaps. So this is another way to identify what some of your strengths are, and then again, boost your confidence. We, by the way, think it's great not just to use this as your own self-assessment, but also ask your boss or peers or team members about what they see are your leadership skills and strengths. And then also, as part of recognizing and better leveraging your strengths on a regular basis, the Gallup organization is a great organization. They are the ones that own the Strengths Finder assessment, which a lot of you have probably heard of because it's pretty common. If you feel like you're one of those people that doesn't fully understand or own or is not totally aware of what their strengths are, we highly recommend taking the Strengths Finder assessment. We think it's great. And on this slide is their sign model so that it's another way to kind of identify and understand what your strengths are. So what they assert, which we totally agree with, is the way to know if you're leveraging a strength or where your different strengths are is when you're successful and you feel effective at doing a specific task or working on a certain project. When you actively look forward to one of those things and you get excited to work on it, that's another sign that you're leveraging a strength. When you are inquisitive and you're really focused, you're kind of in the zone and you feel like you're growing professionally, that's another sign of a strength. And also, if you feel really fulfilled and authentic working on a specific type of project, service, or program, that's another sign that you're leveraging one of your strengths too. So this is another way to kind of recognize some of those strengths. And the other thing that we would suggest to help you understand what you bring to the table and boost your confidence again as well, is to use our ideal career model. This is the model that we developed over doing this for 21 years, to help our clients understand what their strengths are, what their brand is, and also when they're in the right fit job-wise or not. And it's a great idea to spend some time thinking about not just what your strengths are, but also what your personality traits are that lead to or add to your kind of profile of your strengths. Are you more extroverted or introverted? Are you more of a leader or, behind the scenes type of person? And what does that mean? What are your strengths as a result of your personality type? And then we also want you to think about your past education, your degree from Purdue, and how that builds your credibility in the workplace as well as your past experience. So these are things that can also help boost your confidence as well. And then the last couple of things we want to share with you before we get to our Q&A is another great tool to help boost your confidence and overcome the imposter syndrome is to start keeping an accomplishments document, like right on your desktop where it's really easy to access. And you can put in there testimonials, kudos from clients, like new skills that you've learned, experience that you've gained. And at the very beginning, when you're working on this, like hardcore heavy duty, you may want to read it daily. Like, what did I accomplish today? And what kind of kudos did I get as a result of my work? And you can move to weekly or monthly after that. But having an accomplishments document is not just good for, boosting your confidence and feeling better, but it's also a great tool to leverage when it's time to interview for another job or when you're going for that next promotion. And then finally, we want you to, as a sum, kind of just summarize everything that we've talked about today, create a plan with, let's say, the top 2 action items that you're most drawn to from what we discussed today. It could be planning to find a mentor. It could be, I want to do the leadership wheel to see what strengths I have that, I really want to kind of take ownership of more. And some people might say, oh, I need to take a class or get a certification. And we would recommend, from what we discussed today, like we said before, take it in baby steps. Establish 30, 60, 90-day goals and say, okay, for the first 30 days, I'm going to do these 2 things and see how that kind of boosts my confidence. Share it with your manager or your mentor or someone else that you trust in your personal life, if it's appropriate to do so, so that they can help hold you accountable. And that's part of what we talked about, getting an accountability partner to help support you in some way, shape, or form. So we'd really like it if you all would start to create your plan as we're talking here today and we're doing questions. Please feel free to share 1 or 2 of your top action items that you want to start with first. Remember too that you may want to brainstorm with other people what some of your action items could be, because they could have some great ideas, people that know you well, based on your situation and your strengths and your personality, what would be best for you. And we'll go ahead and we'll start moving towards our Q&A here. And Bailey, if you could help me, I can see the chat. I'll try to kind of toggle between the chat and the Q&A box just in case, but if you can help me make sure that I just capture everything, that would be great.
Yeah, for sure. So one of the questions we had a little bit ago was, does it have to be a mentor? Can it just be a friend where you keep each other accountable?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And it totally can be a friend. That is completely fine for accountability purposes. We like our clients to have a mentor just because we think in the long run, it's a great resource for you, industry specific knowledge wise, or, whatever it is. But for the purposes of what we're talking about today, absolutely can just be a friend, so that it's quick and easy to get the process going. Great question.
For sure. And one of the other questions we have is, when you say discount success, could that also mean, oh, I'm just doing my job?
Yes, I would agree that that could be a discounting success kind of negative thought in a way. So instead of saying, for example, if someone's giving you kudos, instead of saying, oh, I'm just doing my job, that doesn't allow you to fully own, thank you. I really enjoy doing this, or I feel like I have a strength in that. So yes, if you find yourself saying, oh, I'm just doing my job, I do think that's kind of stuffing down the success and pushing it aside too much. Great question. That's a good one.
For sure. And another question we have is, going through a number of downsizings, reorgs, has left me unable to take risk. How can I overcome this part of the imposter syndrome?
Yeah, that's totally understandable. One of the first things we want you to do is think about and consider that the things that happened to you, the downsizing, etc., most likely, again, depending on your situation, but were external circumstances that you had nothing to do with or couldn't control. So that wasn't about you. And the more you can separate reality from your fear, like what's your internal thing going on and how you're attaching it, you're collapsing the two, the better off you're going to be, because then you can say, oh wait, that was about that, it wasn't about me. And you can start to work on affirmations, for example, about that. So I would actually have an affirmation that literally addressed the downsizing, etc., to say those were external circumstances and they had nothing to do, let's say, with my performance. That's one possible way to deal with it. Great question.
For sure. On your website, where is the ideal career model?
Yes, so we actually don't have it on our website. Ask for the presentation. So if you look, let me just get to our contact info to make it a little bit easier. The best thing to do would be to just email us at admin@halliecrawford.com, and we'd be happy to, we'll just send you the PowerPoint that has that inside of it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And do you have any resource recommendations for finding a mentor outside of your company or current industry?
Yes. So your Purdue Alumni Association, and I was not paid to say this because we actually do tell our clients this all the time, that your Alumni Association is a great resource. I don't know if you all have like mentor programs. Like if you look on your LinkedIn alumni group, you might be able to identify people there. But bottom line is, and Bailey can speak to this more, but look to your alumni association, because those are warm leads. They're more likely to get back to you and be willing to help you.
Yeah, I went ahead and put a link in the chat. It's our Purdue alumni portal. And this is basically a LinkedIn crossover just for Purdue alumni. So go there, create your own account. We have an official mentoring program through there, but it's also just a nice way to connect, not necessarily in a very systematic way, but more relaxed, like you would on social media, Instagram, anything like that. So feel free to check out our Purdue alumni portal as well.
Awesome. That's a great place to look. And then you can find people who are either within your industry or not, but maybe they're outside of your industry, but within a role that would be helpful for you to learn a little bit more about.
Definitely. We have another really great question. How can I feel more confident and less intimidated in the workplace if I am younger than most, like myself, and also female among a male dominant field or industry?
Yeah, so that's a great one. I would say a couple of things. I think the affirmations would be good for you to separate yourself from gender and age and say, look, these are the skills and strengths I have regardless of those things. And even maybe list those out so that you know what your top 5 strengths are. Maybe you take the Strengths Finder assessment. So you could even, not just have those for yourself, but communicate those to others. I think that's good too. Force yourself to speak up more. And I would honestly say, because I did this a little bit earlier in my career, is I faked it till I made it. I just pushed myself outside of my comfort zone. I spoke up, I asked questions, I paid attention to my body language, and it did impact how I felt over time. So noticing that internal impact more and pushing it to the side can actually help. And you have to be proactive about it and be consistent, but just pushing yourself to take those small risks can be really, really good too.
For sure. That was a great question, Katrina. Thanks for asking that.
Yeah.
Do we have any other questions? Oh, here we have one. In response to Katrina's question,
Yeah.
I'm in the opposite realm. I'm the oldest in an office of younger coworkers who are much faster with technology and and other things. It's somewhat intimidating.
Yeah, totally understand this. We had a client once who said, and he kind of knew in advance he probably shouldn't have taken the job, but he was more senior and he said, they're shooting Nerf guns in the office all day and I just don't feel like I fit in. So totally understand it. So couple things there, like know and understand that, okay, you may not be as quick with technology, and you know what, that's just how it is. You have other strengths that you bring to the table. So focus more on, okay, what can I do about the technology? What do I need to learn? Like, are there some classes that you could take to feel a little bit better and have it be a little bit smoother? But on the flip side of that, realize and really own and understand, okay, I might not be as fast with those things, but I have these other 5 things that they don't have: the work experience, the life experience, the networking connections that you have, just the wisdom and big picture kind of thinking, like business strategy, for example, that you might have. So don't try to like become that, a younger person, so to speak, too much. Do as much as you need to kind of survive and be effective. But then the rest of it will be to like own what you do bring to the table and offer up that wisdom and advice too. And you can even kind of joke about it a little bit as well. Great question. That's a good one.
What other questions do we have? Feel free to put those in the chat.
Oh, that's good. I'm hungry. You all were very engaged today. I really appreciate it. And just so as everyone knows too, if a question comes to you later on as you're listening to the recording or looking at the PowerPoint, please don't hesitate to email us. We'd be happy to answer quick questions, because I know that it doesn't always come up in the moment. I'm actually more introverted than extroverted. I know it doesn't seem like that today, but I usually think of questions much later. I don't always have that great comeback or that question right off the top of my head. So totally okay to do that.
Yeah, we did have another question that came in. For those who are unemployed, how do we take risks to apply for new and sometimes bigger jobs than what we had in the past?
Yeah, you know what I would do is the accountability partner here in this situation is really good. But then I would start to also conduct informational interviews with people that are in the jobs that you're looking for or interested in. Because when you talk to someone who's like a real person in that job, you'll realize, oh, they're just a person just like I am. Okay. And you can ask them questions about what strengths are required and what experience is required. And it may actually give you some good answers to say, oh, well, I actually have that expertise. So I would talk to people who are in those jobs. That's a risk in and of itself, to kind of reach out to someone that either you don't know as well, or it's someone cold, and that's going to boost your confidence in and of itself enormously. But then gathering that information about what they do can really help boost your confidence too and push you outside your comfort zone. Great question. Informational interviews.
Yeah, we have another really good question from Sean. He said, I'm relatively new to this area and into the business community. How do I get people to let me into their professional circles?
Yeah, that's great. So Alumni Association here as well, I would say, see if you can find some people who are there locally. And even if that particular alum is not local, like going to friends, family, and all of that and seeing if they know people locally, just try to find some warm leads if possible. Another place to look would be an industry specific association. So join one of those, start to participate, even if it's virtually in webinars they have. You could even maybe check out LinkedIn groups or meetup groups, meetup.com, all one word, meetup.com, for some local groups to kind of, make some connections there locally. That can help build your professional network there.
Yeah, we have another question. How do you make sure that you are charging enough for consulting, especially if you're the only person in a region offering that service?
That's a great question. I mean, I would still research other locations and what people are charging elsewhere to give you kind of a baseline. So even if you're the only person, which is great for business in a lot of ways, I think, you can at least get kind of a baseline from other areas and then estimate if you need to charge something differently based on cost or standard of living in comparison to those other places. So that's what I would do. And then a little bit of it can be just kind of testing the waters and seeing, how many people are buying one of your packages versus a lower cost package, and doing a survey even of friends and family to find out, if they think the fees locally are reasonable. Ask other people. Don't be hesitant to do that. All right, and then I've got to start to run to my next call here in just a moment.
Yeah, so this will be our last question for the day, and then we will jump off, and I'll send out the recording to everybody who registered it as well. So for people who are doing interdisciplinary research, what do you suggest them to feel more confident when they move to different departments? Because compared to people doing one kind of job, I feel like I am lagging a lot of knowledge and experience.
Great question. I would focus more on what transferable skills and expertise you have that translate over, and worry a little bit less about the industry or, department specific knowledge. Get yourself up to speed with it. And maybe this is where you want to spend a little bit more time in your newer job. If it is newer, I thought I heard that. Researching what do you need to learn, find out from other people what you need to learn, what you need to read and get up to speed with. But for the moment, focus less on, I don't know what I'm doing because I don't have this, specific knowledge or expertise. What skills and strengths do you bring to the table? Why did they hire you kind of in the first place? And focus there instead, and the rest will catch up over time.
Well, thank you so much, Haley. This was a great way to spend a Thursday, and want to thank you again for presenting to all of us at the Alumni Association and Purdue Alumni. And thank you to everyone who joined us today. I will send out a recording and an email with some follow-up information for you to take advantage of. But thank you again, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks everyone for the kudos. It makes my day. Have a great one.